This is a review of the new Send hardware. Something I was really excited to test out because I was one of the first people to get my flight fins and do jumps and tricks on them. But one of the things that was frustrating is that you have to drill your fender and put zip ties on. And I did on my Future Motion fender, and I wasn't too happy about it. And some of the zip ties would break, and I mean, I understand why. The reasoning behind it, if you don't understand how this all works, is that the flight fins attached to your fender, they lift the board, but it's really stressful on the bolts that attach the fender to the one wheel. And even before the flight fins, a lot of people, those, even though they thicken the rails a little bit where the bolts go through your rails, it's still aluminum, and a lot of people were stripping out their bolts even before flight fins, just from your fender and your fender rolling over and vibration. And as the screws tend to loosen out, and as they loosen out, there's even less threads making contact with the screws in your aluminum rails, and they'll strip. And then you go to put a screw back in, and then you strip it even worse, and then it's just a mess. So this system that he developed, the screw actually mounts from underneath, so there's no way it can strip it. And even if your rails are completely stripped out and have no threads, and the screw spins freely in your rails, this will mount securely because it mounts from underneath. It has a small set bolt that goes on top. So no matter what the state of your rails are, this will mount a fender to your one wheel. So even if you don't have flight fins and you just want to mount a fender, this will work for you. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. And I'm going to try to add a couple clips that you've probably already seen to the beginning of this video showing me with these things in motion, in use. So check out the way they're mounted to the rail and to the fender. And I'm using a craft&ride fender here. This is a nice fender. I really did not want to drill it to mount zip ties into it. And then you got zip ties sitting on the side of your frame, and it's not a good look. But the reason you kind of needed your zip ties is because the screws would loosen up, and you needed something to kind of hold things together as your screws were loosening. And you don't want to have to carry around an Allen wrench with you all the time and have to tighten them all the time, which is what you kind of have to do because they just naturally loosen up. This is hand tightened, so you don't need to get any tools out. So what I'll do is I'll ride around, and eventually things loosen up a little bit. You check it every once in a while. You give it a little hand tight, make sure they're tight, and just keep going. It's really convenient. So I've been really happy with this. If you see my videos jumping and doing grabs and all this stuff, and hundreds and hundreds of jumps, and they've held up fine. Nothing's going to hurt this because it's mounted from the underside and the screw comes up. Now, if you're not using flight fins, it's still going to be useful for you. Yeah, because you're not dealing with any sort of screws from the top. It's easier to take it off to clean it. You don't have to use a hex key. It's faster to take your fender off to clean it. The one disadvantage is that if you have flight fins, this is a must. You really need to use these things. There's just no other way about it. I can't imagine going back to just using screws and zip ties. But if you don't have flight fins and you're just using a fender and you take this off, the screws will still protrude up a little bit. So you could kind of touch your foot on it, but that's only if your foot is hanging all the way off of the foot pad while you're riding. So, would it bother you without the fender on, with the fender completely off and the screw still sticking up a little bit? Maybe, but it's a small consideration, especially if you're going to use flight fins. I think these are going to be a no-brainer for flight fins. If you don't have flight fins and you use a fender all the time, again, it's a no-brainer because things can get up in your fender can get dirty. You're going to want it to be able to take it all on and off fast. And if you see, there's no way, your foot's not really going to mess with these here on your fender. So if you use a fender all the time, no-brainer. The only time you might think, I'm not sure, would be if you take your fender off frequently and like to ride it without the fender. You will have it sitting up there a little bit. But unless you're doing a bunch of tricks and stuff where your foot sticks up past the foot pad onto where those screw holes are, you're never going to notice it even then. So I think for just about anybody, if you have a fender, other than obviously a magnetic fender, you wouldn't be needing these. I think it's a great way to go. I've beaten the heck out of these things for well over a month now, and I've had no issues whatsoever. it's really the sturdiest way to do it. One thing that before I did this, I was thinking, you actually have to take your rails off. Is that going to be a pain? But it's really not, because it took me maybe half an hour. Taking my time. I'm meticulous about things. I installed the entire system in about half an hour, and you take off one rail at a time, so it's not really that big of a deal. And if you're like me, your hub bolts tend to loosen up every once in a while anyways. It's a good excuse to tighten up your inside silver hub bolts while you're at it. If you want a tutorial on that, check out my other videos. I've had to do it a few times. But you basically just undo your screws on one side, take one rail off, and then you install it from underneath. That part's easy. And you put your rail back, flip the board around, do the other side, and you're done. Yeah, I think he's charging like $25 for these things. It's very reasonable, and it's more than just 4 screws. It does come with small nuts that go on the top. It has inserts so the nuts will stay put, and then on the top it also has another plate, and then of course your custom-made screws with the brass inserts. I'll show you how easy this is to take it off. That was from full tight to completely loose, and some people were saying, oh, well, you got to make it bigger so you can reach it, but it's really, if it's any bigger, it's going to be difficult to, it's going to be more obtrusive. So these things have brass inserts on them. It's molded, well made. I've been really happy with this setup. I've used it for about a month, so I hope this review helps you out. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll try to answer it. And if you're on the fence about it, I'd go ahead and get it. It's not that hard to put on, and I think you'll really enjoy it. I've already put it all the way back on tight, and that's how it works.